We're going to learn a little bit about anatomy. And first off, we're going to start with the definition. What exactly is anatomy? So anatomy is a study of the structure of organisms and their parts. So we're actually not just made up of one thing and that's it. We're not just one big blob. So there's many different structures and different functions to those structures that help us be who we are. So let's start, what exactly are these parts? They're cells, tissues, and organs. And if you want to remember this with kind of a mnemonic, it's call that out. So call, C for cells, that, T for tissues, and out, O for organs. So cells, tissues, and organs. So let's start with cells. So cells are the kind of foundation of life. They're the building blocks of it. And they serve many, many different functions. And they're made up of molecules and atoms. And when they all come together, they form tissues. So tissues could be muscles, for example. And tissues are just a large collection of cells that have similar structure. And when these muscles come together, when these tissues come together, we have organs. So organs are just many different types of tissues, and they have their own functions, and they can, okay, cool. I think Cal got into the right room. And they have their own functions, and they actually all work together, which is kind of an important thing to note. While these organs have their own unique functions, they don't do separate things all by themselves. Each of them work together to kind of work together for an overall goal of keeping you healthy, of keeping you alive, right? So to prove this, we can start with, let's name off some organs. So we have the heart, we have the brain, we have the tongue. Does anybody want to tell me what the heart does? Go for it, Nikhil.
It pumps blood to all the parts of the body.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so then somebody tell me what the brain does. Go for it, Maskeen.
It controls the whole body.
Yeah, we kind of think, and it sends signals to our body, right? So would you say the heart and the brain are the same? No, right?
No.
But would you say the brain can function without the blood flow from the heart? We need that, right? We need the blood flow from the heart to pump oxygen to our brain. And so even though the brain and the heart do very different things, they work together for an overall goal. They kind of support each other. So this kind of gets into how are all the organs connected in our body? Well, we have these things called organ systems. And it's important to note here that while, usually we associate one organ with a particular system, one organ can be part of multiple systems because, again, each organ has its unique function, and then each organ system has its unique function. So one organ's unique function can, be helpful for many organ systems. And some of these functions can include breathing, removing waste, and spreading blood throughout your body. And then another important thing to note, there are 12 organ systems, and we're actually going to start studying some of them. So does anybody know any organ systems off the top of their head? I'll be impressed. Go ahead, Maskeen.
The digestive system,
Yep.
the muscular system, the circulatory system, the excretory system, and the respiratory system.
Yeah, well, that's like half of them. Does anybody know any other ones? Or did he kind of name them all? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the circulatory system. Let's focus on that for a second. So the circulatory system is going to move important substances throughout your body, such as blood, nutrients, and all your muscles need the oxygen in the bloodstream, and just in general, everything kind of needs blood, right? So the circulatory system is so important because it pretty much goes everywhere. Then the next thing I want to focus on is the muscular system. So muscles are responsible for your movement and your blood flow too, right? Now, if we go to the skeletal system, the skeletal system is responsible for your structure. So if we had no skeletal system and just the muscular system, we'd be a big blob, and this big blob could move around, but we'd have no structure, we'd have no form. You wouldn't be able to tell we're human or what we are, right? We'd just be a pile of muscles. And if we were just if we just had this skeletal system, we would be a statue, right? We would have structure and we kind of look like how we are, but we wouldn't be able to move. So, but if we have the muscular system and the skeletal system, now all of a sudden we have structure and we can move. So I always think that that's pretty cool because it's like, in order for one system to kind of create who we are, we need them to work together. So the skeletal system and muscular system are just an example of two systems that work really closely together. So now we can move on to our activity, digestion simulation. So does anybody want to read the objective for us? Go for it, Nikhil.
Students will learn about the digestive system by stimulating how food is broken down throughout the body.
Perfect. So we need to know a little bit about the digestive system. So there's three main functions to it. It digests food, so we're breaking down food into small molecules, and then we have to absorb the nutrients. Food does no good for us if we don't actually get the nutrients out of it, the energy out of it that we need. And then we have to eliminate solid food waste, which is pretty much what the body just doesn't end up using. So whatever we don't absorb. Okay, so we're gonna start with the mouth. So in the mouth, food is going to be chewed into smaller pieces. And the reason why this is so important, I'm actually going to ask you guys, what do you think happens if we try to swallow a piece of food that's way too big for our esophagus? What happens?
It might get stuck.
Yeah, it gets stuck, and then we end up choking, right? So it's important that we chew our food so that we don't, end up suffocating. And then the next part that the mouth does is in your saliva, there are actually enzymes, and let's just talk about enzymes for a second. Enzymes are proteins that are going to speed up chemical processes, and in this case, they're breaking down food. Enzymes can do a variety of things, really, but just particularly in the saliva, they're going to break down the food quicker, and so that's what the enzymes in the saliva do. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the stomach. So stomach enzymes are like saliva enzymes, but they're much, much stronger. They're really strong acids, and they're going to break down your food way further. And you might be thinking, why do we need to break down the food further than we can already swallow it, right? Well, the small intestine requires, which is what is going to absorb the nutrients, requires kind of a set of conditions for it to actually absorb the most nutrients possible. And if those kind of set of conditions aren't met, then you're going to end up not being able to absorb all the nutrients you could possibly absorb. So that leads us here. In the small intestine, nutrients are going to be absorbed. And then in the large intestine, whatever is left over that your body didn't use, maybe it's not useful for the body, or maybe you just didn't get to use it, is going to be the waste product. Okay, so now we get to move on to our activity, which I always find so fun. This one's a little bit messy, but you'll have a chance to wash your hands at the end, so yeah. So first off, we need to get our material. So we need a slice of bread, water, vinegar, paper towel, and a bowl. So when you have all these things, please give me a thumbs up so I know you are ready to move on. Okay, so first step. So we're going to tear our bread into small little pieces, and we're going to place these pieces into a bowl. So I'm going to give everybody a second to do that. And again, the way I like to run kind of like the activities is give me a thumbs up when you're ready so we all can move on together. Okay, so we've all teared up our bread. Yeah, okay, perfect. So now pour a splash of water onto the pieces of bread. And at the same time that you're doing this, I just want you to think about the digestive system. I know it seems, we just kind of talked about it, but really kind of synthesize the information while you're doing this, and think about what we're doing. How does it actually relate to what we just learned? Tearing up bread. I mean, what does that have to do with the digestive system? So just think about it a little bit. Once you pour just a little bit of water, go ahead, Miss Key.
He told us to have half a cup, but should we put half?
Yeah, just pour like a little bit. You don't have to have half a cup. I don't know why they put such exact measurements, but it's okay. Okay, so I think if you all have poured your water, give a thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so step number 3. Now you're going to pour vinegar onto the pieces of bread. And after you do this is kind of a little bit of the gross part. Try to squeeze and mix the pieces of bread together so that it forms kind of a log shape. And make sure you put more vinegar in than you put in water, because well, just remember, think back to the digestive system. What did we learn about saliva, and what did we learn about stomach enzymes, right? So why would we have more of one than the other? And then once you're done squeezing and mixing the pieces of bread into a log shape, please give me a thumbs up. Oh, Samuel, you got gloves. That's actually a good idea. Okay, so hopefully everybody got a chance to make it into a log. I'm going to move on to step number 4, because again, we're kind of short on time after what happened. So step number 4. So place this log of bread onto a paper towel. And I want you to try to squeeze as much as you can out of it. So I know you just got through putting stuff into it and mixing it together. Now pretty much I want you to try to get as much as you can out of it. And again, think about while you're doing this, why are we doing it? What step in the digestive system maybe is this, right? I mean, we'll talk about it later, but just think about it at the same time. And try to get as much as you can out of it. I'll give you maybe like 30 seconds to do this. Okay, and then once you're done, give me a thumbs up. Nice, Samuel. Nice, Miskeen. Cool. Okay. Let's move on. So now does everybody want a minute to wash their hands? So I'll give you this question, and then I'll let you go wash your hands if you want to. What similarities can you draw between the simulation and what you just learned about the digestive system? So kind of what I've been telling you to think about, you know, what was breaking up their bread? What was that kind of symbolizing? And what was when we try to squeeze the moisture out of the log? What was that, right? So does everybody have their hands clean, or do you want a minute to go like wash your hands?
Can I get a paper towel because it spilled some water?
Go for it. Okay, I'll give everybody a minute to think about this, and then when everybody's done, we can
So when we started, we just put it in the water. That's kind of just like I think it's just kind of like the bread getting wet from our mouth, and then the saliva was the vinegar. And then when we were mixing it like in the water, it was kind of our mouth chewing it. And then when we took it out and tried to get like the stuff out, that was probably our intestine or something like that.
Yeah, so you know, you've almost got it right on the money. That's pretty close. Does anybody have anything else to add on, or should I go over it? Go ahead, Nikhil.
I think when we added the water, I think that part was the saliva. Then when we added the vinegar, that part was when it like just got into the stomach. And when we mixed it into a log, that part is when it's like getting digested. And the same at the end, where when we got all the moisture out, that's the intestine getting all the vitamins and enzymes and stuff from the food.
Wow, both of you got it really kind of right. Okay, anything else, or should I just go over this really quick? Go ahead, Miskeen.
It goes down the esophagus.
Yep, that's another thing. Okay, so let me just break it down really quick. So we had tearing the bread into pieces, and when we were tearing the bread, we were chewing the food. Then when we added water, this was the saliva, and this was the saliva kind of starting to break down the food. Then we added vinegar. Now remember when we added the vinegar, I said add more vinegar than water, right? So when we were adding the more amount of vinegar, that was actually the stronger stomach acids, right? And also we can just look at it, you know, water versus vinegar, which one is stronger, right? The vinegar. So that's kind of why we use two different liquids for that. So then after that, we can kind of see a transformation going on. We started off with a solid. Now it's kind of like a pile of mush. You know, it kind of doesn't even look like bread anymore. It's just really kind of almost gross, you know. Okay, so then after that we tried squeezing out the moisture with the paper towel, and then this was a small intestine kind of absorbing the nutrients. So everything that we could get out, we tried to get it all out, and that's kind of a exact representation of what the small intestine does, because when we are trying to absorb the nutrients, we don't absorb that much. We actually have a lot left over, which it becomes a waste product. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then what we're left over with is just the waste product. And you know, let's look at the physical transformation again. It kind of went full circle. We started off with a solid, then we broke it down into yeah, that's a good point, Nikhil. And so we started off with a solid, then we broke it down into mush, which is kind of what happens in your stomach. And then we ended up with a solid again somehow after the small intestine tried to absorb the nutrients. So that kind of went full circle. And then I like the point, I think it was Nikhil said in the chat. Yeah, I think that the small intestine stretches out a a lot, whereas the large intestine isn't very long at all. Anyway, so now you guys have earned a 5-minute break. I encourage you to go to the bathroom, get a snack, and some water. Always very important. Everybody come back now, and we're gonna go on to our next activity, living lungs. So who would like to read the objective? Meskin, go for it.
Students will learn about the respiratory system by simulating the function of lungs and its interactions with the
Diaphragm.
diaphragm.
Okay, perfect. So we have to actually learn the parts of the respiratory system first. So here are some of the body parts involved. We have the nose, the throat, the voice box, windpipe, airways, and lungs. Now you might see some like cool medical terms next to it. You don't need to know these, but I think they're cool to learn. So like the trachea, bronchi. Anyway, only the lungs here are actually classified as an organ. So it's kind of cool. Just go on the next slide. Okay. So what is exactly the respiratory system? Well, this is a system that helps you respire. And a respire is just a fancy way to say that you're going to breathe oxygen into your body and exhale carbon dioxide. And I think so our next slide is going to talk about why do we actually need to respire. The respiratory system kind of affects the cells, and again, I kind of emphasize this at the beginning. Cells are the foundation and the building blocks. Yeah, they're all needed to survive, but the respiratory system in particular kind of does a lot. So cells require oxygen to function and remove cell waste. So your cell does so much for you that if it doesn't have oxygen, that's kind of that can be lethal for you, right? So some of the functions that your cells do, they break down sugars in the foods you eat, they metabolize those nutrients to get energy, and you can die from the lack of oxygen if the respiratory system is disrupted. So this could be like a lung collapsing, for example. So other parts and that are besides the lungs, which are the organ that in the system that help, they help transport oxygen from the air into your nose or mouth. Then they move it through the throat and the windpipe. This goes into your lungs, and they release carbon dioxide back into the air. So again, it seems like such a basic thing, breathing, but it's honestly really, really important for you. So keep breathing. So how do the lungs actually work? How do we breathe? So, this isn't really how we breathe, but just a cool fact about the lungs, I guess. I feel like it's always depicted in the textbooks that they're really pink or like red, Lungs are like spongy and like grayish pink. Like they're even more gray than the picture that you see on the right. Definitely not as cool, but yeah. And then they also work with a muscle called the diaphragm. It's located right below the lungs. And how it works is when you inhale, your diaphragm is going to contract. When your diaphragm contracts, the air sacs in your lungs are going to inflate with oxygen. Then when you exhale, your diaphragm is going to relax. And, it says get bigger, but really just means get back to its regular size. And the air sacs are going to deflate. And then as CO2, so that's carbon dioxide, leaves your body into the air. So pretty much just in simple terms, when you inhale, your diaphragm contracts, you're inflating your lungs with oxygen. And then when you exhale, your diaphragm is going to relax and you're deflating, and carbon dioxide is leaving your body. I like this conversation that's going on in the chat. Yes, all very valid points. Okay, so let's move on into our materials. Okay, so hopefully we have enough time to do this. We're kind of running short on time, but I think we can do it. I believe in us. So we need a large plastic bottle, we need 3 straws, a large balloon, 2 small balloons, tape, and scissors. So when you have all these materials, please give me a thumbs up. And so I found kind of the instructions on these slides to be a little bit confusing, but they did provide a link. So I'm just going to follow this. So your 2 small balloons, cut off the neck of them, and then use only the big part. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but use the big parts of the balloon. So after that, you're gonna, only with one of your straws, cut the straw in half. Then attach 1 balloon to each straw. But only use the 1 straw because you're gonna need the other straw for something. Perfect. So I think someone's done something fun. Okay. So from here, you're gonna take your other straw and you're going to cut one side, make a 2-inch cut. and it's just going to be so that it's split in half. And only do that on one side, because on the other side we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay, and then make sure that it can actually kind of like open up a little bit. Okay, so then from here on the other side, you're going to make 2 cuts. So go ahead, Maskeen.
I have one of the straws with this stretchy thing in the middle.
Oh, in the middle? Can you cut it off where the stretchy thing kind of ends, and then just use the part that isn't the stretchy part? So there should be 4 sides, and it should be able to open up just in every which way. Just chat. Oh, that's so cool. My dad always runs outside to see the jets fly over. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, are we gonna move on? Let's give Maskeen, I think, another small check. Are you good? Okay, perfect. So from here, on the two-way split straw, you're gonna add. So remember, we had 2 halves of a straw. You're gonna put both of those on the side that's only split 2 ways. So not the one that has 4 ways, just the one that's 2. Are you gonna move on? Perfect. So from here, cut off the bottom of the bottle, and leave a pretty good chunk of the bottle, but cut off the bottom part so that there's a gap, a hole. Perfect. Wow, it kind of looks exactly like the picture. That's funny. Okay, so then remove the bottle cap, and from the bottle cap, you're gonna try to make a hole, so large enough to fit a straw through it. I just did this with scissors. It was kind of hard to do, but.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Actually, when I put the tape on, it kind of came off, and I'm not really sure how to like connect the 2 straws to the other straw.
So tape the 2 halves together, and then from there on the opening that has the 2-way split, try to fit them kind of like in between, and then from there tape it again. Okay. So I think we can move on to this step. So from here, you're gonna try to. You should probably put it in like through the bottom of the bottle, and then put the 4 end up, the 4 split end up, and then you want to put that into the straw through the bottle cap. Perfect. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. Okay. So from here, you're going to want to bend the 4-way split over. So bend it over, and then you're going to tape the sides down. Go ahead, Maskeen.
I'm realizing it's pretty hard to put anything through a bottle. I can't get it through.
Maybe use scissors. Oh, you are using scissors. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we're running short on time, so we're just gonna move on. Then cut the neck of the last balloon. So with the first 2 balloons, you cut the necks of them. Cut the neck of the last balloon, and then using that big part, stretch it around the bottle.
I don't have a balloon big enough to fit on the bottom of my bottle.
That's perfectly fine. So now we can just watch the video. I think we did most of the process. So the end result is you're going to pull on the bottom of the balloon, or of the balloon that would have gone on the bottom. You would have pulled it down, and this is what would have happened. Pretty cool, huh? Pull it down and it inflates, and then they pull it back up. So now let's go on to a little bit of a discussion. Okay, so what similarities can we draw between this model and what we learned about the respiratory system? Does anybody wanna give it a guess, or I can just go over it? Nikhil, do you want to try saying something?
I think the larger balloon, it might be the diaphragm.
Wow. Okay. Yep. That's correct. And then what do you think the two little balloons are? Anybody want to take a guess? Samuel?
The lungs.
Yep. Amazing. Perfect. So, yeah. So we'll just go over it. So when a person inhales, their diaphragm is contracting, and then it increases the size of the lungs. So when we were pulling down on the diaphragm, we noticed that the two balloons, or pulling down on the bottom of the balloon, we noticed that the two small balloons kind of inflated. Then when we are exhaling, the diaphragm is expanding, so we kind of let it go and we let it relax, and then they deflated. So in a person, this is when you're exhaling carbon dioxide. And then we can kind of just go over. So the small balloons are the lungs, the long straw is the trachea or the windpipe, and then the voice box, and then the throat, and then a large balloon is the diaphragm. So let's see. I think that's all I want to say about that. So also the two straws, so the two halves that were stemming from the main straw, these are what we call bronchi, and then these pathways conduct air directly to the lungs. So I guess from the top you could see that they kind of go down the main trachea, and then they break off into the two separate halves of the straws, which are the bronchi, and then this is what leads to the lungs. So that's how kind of the air was getting where it was going. Perfect. Yeah, they are. When your diaphragm is irritated, that's why you have hiccups. And there's like a myth also where it's like when you're growing, you have hiccups. I think it's just your diaphragm